And for when I put this on YouTube, be aware that I'm streaming this, so I'm going to be probably interrupted several times talking to people, which, again, you should probably see in the description that this is a stream. It's going to look a little weird how I'm doing this because I'm doing it, each little column is per game. They're not in order. So like the top game, like up here, Phoenix Wright 1 is not the best game in the series. And just the way I have it structured. So again, first case, first game. It's just an intro to the mechanics. Nothing important really happens. You play as Phoenix Wright, and Mia Fey is your assistant. We also meet Larry Butts, which is a recurring character. Okay, second case is Turnabout Sisters. We also first meet Miles Edgeworth, who I think a lot of people can agree is the best character in the series. And he, even in the first game, he really kind of outshines Phoenix to an extent. And he just kind of continuously does. Edgeworth is your fourth favorite prosecute. Oh, goodness. Oh my, you might not like some of my rankings, because a lot of my rankings are kind of Edgeworth based. Also, the Edgeworth investigation games, while the first one might be the weakest game in the series, second game, I'll just say right off, is my favorite game in the entire franchise. I know it doesn't follow the same format. It's not like a trial-based game. I think it has the strongest story. The entire game is story. There's no fluff missions or anything. But we'll get to that when we get to it. We're still in one. Second case is the first case where you're actually doing a case and not basically in a tutorial, which is definitely the case in part 1 that has real no significance to it, sorta. Will Powers does make a reappearance later, so I guess you can kind of say it has importance. It's a full case, so I would put it above case 1-2, but I think it's right in the middle. Okay, 1-4. It's called Turnabout Goodbyes. It took me a long time to even understand what the hell happened in this case, at least at the beginning. Edgeworth got framed. It's the Robert Hammond thing, and the boat owner, Yogi, whatever. It's also the Manfred von Karma. Great case. It's definitely the case that it's the case where Edgeworth is kind of established. Case 1-2, Edgeworth is just kind of there. 1-3, he's also just kind of there. 1-4, though, that's when Edgeworth established as a character. And case 1-5, a case that was not even in the original Japanese release. It was the case added for the DS port, the English DS port. And it is, I think, 1-5 is an amazing case. It's as long as pretty much all the other 4 cases combined. Emma Skye is introduced in it, a character that would make many appearances later on in the series. And what's kind of great, there was so much praise for Emma Skye's character that she was added to Apollo Justice, because 1, 2, and 3 came out in Japan before 1 came out in the US. So Emma Skye wasn't an established character in the Japanese release of any of the first 3 games. She was such a popular character that they added her from here on out in the story. However, in Japan, they never got case 1-5. I think they reported it to DS in Japan as well, but if you never did that and only played Apollo Justice, you would be introduced to this character named Emma Skye in Apollo Justice and have no idea who it is. So that's kind of funny. It also sucks that in the anime they did not animate case 1-5. Again, 1-5 was not in Japan, which makes me think that it actually never was brought to Japan because they completely skipped over it in the anime. I don't really have great things to say about the second game, aside from the last case. And I know it's probably a controversial thing to say. And when I get to my overall game rankings, which would be at the end, this game is pretty low. I'm going to say right off, there is no case in this game, in this franchise, in my opinion, that's bad. I'm going to go so far as to say that I don't think Turnabout Big Top is that bad of a case. People notoriously hate it. I don't think it's great. I don't think it's one of those cases that is not integral for the story, just like the Turnabout Samurai case for the first game was not integral for the story, really. But I still think it's really not bad. So first case is The Lost Turnabout. That's the one where we're introduced to Maggie Bird, who makes an appearance a couple times. Turnabout Big Top, your favorite case? Wow, I've actually never heard someone say that before. Actually, I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna put them. You know what? I'm gonna rank them because I already have it in my head, but I'll adjust them as need. So, first case, Lost Turnabout. It's kind of dumb. It's not great. It's basically a reintroduction. It's another tutorial. There's some very dumb moments in it. It's the one with like it's the yellow baseball glove one, right? And also the killer writes the name on the ground. But the twist, and I know I wasn't really gonna say spoilers, but it's not even really spoilers. The twist is that the person spelled the name wrong or something. So it couldn't have been the person who was accused. I don't know. It's not good. The defendant, Maggie Bird, makes a reappearance in the third game, and I think she makes another appearance in the first Investigations game. But anyways, Turnabout Big Top, second favorite, or second to least favorite. It's not bad. I think my biggest issue with this case is the way that the murder happened. I think the plot of how the murder was set up was incredibly I don't know. It was dumb, in my opinion. It felt one of the most unrealistic murders in the entire series. But again, I don't know why so many people hate it. I know a lot of people hate clowns, so the fact that there's a clown in it. It's also not, again, it's not a case that's integral to the story, as with Turnabout Samurai. It seems like it's the third game in the first trilogy, at least, that has no... Yeah. Turnabout Samurai is the third case. It's not integral. Big Top is not integral. And I think the third one in Trials and Tribulations is not integral to the story. So, it's kind of a weird thing. It's like always the third, it seems. Yeah, I don't mind cases that are just kind of a case to be a case. Like some of the one of the DLC cases later on is a case I really love, but in comparison to the rest of the game, I don't think it's amazing, but it's still great. And again, like I said, I don't think there's any case in this game that's bad. I think all of the first cases are pretty crap, but again, they're mainly tutorials. Aside from the DS ones, the first case is not DS, the 3DS ones are... They don't seem important at first, but they kind of build up. The exception to the bad first case rule is Apologistus. I think the first case in Apologistus is great, and it's integral because it loops back around in that game. But anyways, case 2-2. Reunion and Turnabout. We meet Pearl Fay. Pearl Fay's great. We also first go to Crane in that case. First case with Francisco von Karma as well. It's pretty good. It's not amazing. And like I said, I think this is probably one of my least favorite games in the series, just because it's only 4 cases. Now, this one right here, 2-4. Farewell My Turnabout. The one with Matt and Guard. Once again, Maya's in trouble in this case. For a different reason this time. This case is long. I feel like it's as long as case 1-5. This case saves the entire game, in my opinion. If this case was not good, I think this game would be probably the worst game in the series by far. Really, 2-4 is your least favorite case in the game? Any like specifics as to like why you prefer light? Okay, that's understandable. If that's what you're kind of into. That's Justice for All. Trials and Tribulations. What a lot of people consider to be the best one in the entire series. Yeah, it's probably, in my opinion, probably the best. Outside of Edward Investigations 2. that game, I think actually would. The thing is, they're two different game styles. Edward Investigation is not a standard game, or not a standard Phoenix Wright game. But as for like a standard Phoenix Wright game, Part 3 I would agree is probably the best in the series. So let me put up right here what I already know right off. I have kind of a reference sheet just to work off of. I'll be moving things around if I start changing my mind on some things. From my reference sheet, pretty much every last case is my favorite case. They're the strongest case in my opinion. And usually it's what the whole game builds up to. Aside from some of the throwaway cases, majority of the cases build up to the last case. And again, this is pretty much in reverse order. Not really. Most of these are, actually so far they've been in reverse order. If you look at the case numbers. It's the first case of Trials and Tribulations. We actually play as Mia Fey. This is a flashback. Phoenix is the defendant in this case. It's a setup case for basically the rest of the game. I think it's one of the few games where the first case is better than... Like, it's not the worst case. Not that any of them are bad. Again, I should say that. None of them are bad. Just in comparison, it's one of the only ones I think I have on my reference sheet where it's not at the bottom per game. I would say the worst one in this game is the Stolen Turnabout. That's the one with Rhonda Light. What's her name? The one that kind of looks like Zero Suit Summus makes a return. Basically a base or something gets stolen, and yeah. It's not bad. This game is great. All the cases are pretty dang good. But I think the first case is better than the second in this. Oh yeah, Rhonda Light's annoying as heck. Case Free. This one has pretty much zero relevance to the actual plot of Trials and Tribulations. I like it. It's pretty good. I'm trying to think. It's the one with the imposter Phoenix. The intro to Free is very funny because they show it as we see regular Phoenix, right? And then it turns out that's not actually what he looks like. He doesn't look anything like Phoenix, but everyone for some reason thinks that it's Phoenix, right? That's hilarious. It's the case where Maggie Bird makes a reappearance once again as the defendant. Has no relevance to the story. Case 3-1 does. However, it's short. My only issue with Case 3-1 is that it makes Phoenix look incredibly stupid. It doesn't really feel like that was ever canonically his actual character, even while he was still in college, but I don't know. It is what it is. 3-4, another flashback case. It's wherein Mia Fey once again, but this time Diego Armando is her assistant. We are reintroduced to Valerie Hawthorne, sort of, and well, this time she's dead. Miles Edgeworth is in it, younger. It's the one case where at least we see Mia Fey goes against Miles Edgeworth. I think it's a very solid case. And yeah, 3-5. First to Turnabout. Another very long case. Von Karma makes a reappearance temporarily. Kind of a wild twist, which if you played the games, you'll know the twist. Very good. Strongest case in the game. My issue with this tier list is, you think 3-5 is overrated? I'll say one thing about 3-5, and I think it harks back overall to Godot. I kind of think Godot might be the weakest character-wise of all the prosecutors. Nayuda might be a little bit weaker, but Godot, I don't know. I feel like they could have done a lot more with Godot, and they didn't. The conclusion for how the case wrapped up, and like who the actual who actually did it, that part I'm not really a fan of. However, I like everything kind of leading up to the end of the case, which I think even though like the last 15, or let's say 15% of the case isn't great, I still think 85% of it being really good is enough that it's my favorite case of the game easily. But again, Apollo Justice. I remember not when Apollo Justice came out, but I remember just a general, probably it had to have been before Dual Destinies came out, so it was between the DS 3DS era. I remember a lot of people saying that they thought Apollo Justice was bad, I guess. But nowadays, that doesn't seem to be the case. Seems like everyone's kind of changed their mind. They're like, oh, Apollo Justice is a good game, but whatever. I don't dislike it. I think Apollo Justice is just fine. It's, again, it's a new game. It's kind of a reset for the series. Because, for one, it takes place quite a while in the future. Phoenix Wright's not the main character. And, yeah, we get introduced to basically a whole new set of characters. Emma Skye makes a reappearance, so there's also that. Which, in Japan, they had never even really knew of Emma Skye. So that's pretty funny. The first case... Now, I do want to say also real quick that the tier list that I'm using has Apollo Justice as 4 cases, even though it's actually more like 5. The Phoenix Wright... Like, the fake evidence part, which takes place in the past... That's technically not a case. At least not one that you play, really. I would still consider a case, however, this tier list doesn't have it on there. For all sakes and purposes, I would say that the case that's not on here, which is the one that takes place when Phoenix lost his license, I would put that one, like, right in the middle between 3 and 2. So, case 1, even though I have it's the lowest for the game, it's only low because it's very short. It's not, I mean, of course it's integral to the game. I'm almost tempted to put it over 4.2 actually, now that I think about it. Now I'm gonna keep 4.2 above 4.1 because I do like kind of for one, it's the case that we're introduced to Apollo Justice and Tracy Wright for the most part. I know 4.1 we are introduced to him, but it's still kind of a tutorial, so it's not like fleshed out very well. 4.2 though is when we are actually introduced to the characters pretty well. We also get introduced to Clavier. 4.3 is Turnabout Serenade, where a certain character is related to a certain character. Again, it's not like a super serious case or anything. I enjoy it. You know what? The thing about Apollo Justice is an example of a game that feels kind of like the least serious in the series, which isn't like a bad thing, but I do see why some people really don't like Apollo Justice, the game. I'm not referring to the game, not the character. Aside from the end game of Apollo Justice gets really serious, and it all loops back around to the first game. And again, the flashback, sorta, is not on the tier list here. It's not, they don't have it listed, so I would put it right in the middle of 4.3 and 4.2. Edgeworth Investigations 1 is an example of like a prototype of a game, sorta. It's very rough. There's a lot of parts of it that just aren't good, in my opinion. However, Edgeworth 2 improved upon every aspect of Edgeworth Part 1. But with that being said, I still need to, So, Edgeworth Investigations 1. Different from all the other games. It's not like the standard kind of point and click type of thing. You don't really do trials. You actually move your character around. On paper, it sounds pretty good. Again, the first game felt like a prototype. Second game is like the actual game, if that makes sense. There's another reason why Edgeworth 2 is just so much superior, and I'll get to that when I get to it. So, Edgeworth Investigations 1. First case, I mean, it's a case. Not a whole lot to really say about it. It basically kind of teaches you how to play the game, because it's a completely different game. You now control your character, you move around and stuff like that. So I don't have too much to say about it. Oh yeah, Maggie Bird makes a reappearance. The final case, one of the few games in the series that has a final case this low, or actually even low at all. Yeah, it's pretty much the only game that has a very low ranked final case, in my opinion. It dragged on for so long. That's the worst part of it. It just dragged on. It felt like it was never gonna end, even when it was obvious, like so obvious what was actually going on for the most part. It just wouldn't stop. So yeah, it was still good, don't get me wrong. I still enjoyed it, but it felt like it should have ended, like, let's say the final case was like a 10 episode series. It should have ended at episode 6. It shouldn't have kept on going. Okay. Oh, also Investigations 1. Emma again makes an appearance, and we meet Kay Faraday. Kay Faraday's great. I think she's the reason why she's like really great is because she's kind of like the most hyper and kind of wild assistant of the series, but she's so polar opposite of Edgeworth that it works. They're complete opposites for the most part, and that's what makes it really kind of work. Because if you just have two kind of completely wild characters, it doesn't work. If Kay was like a super serious character, it wouldn't have worked. But the fact that she is how she is, and then Edgeworth is how he is, I think makes it like a really great dynamic. The second case of the first game is the one on the airlines. Another case, as with most of the cases in Edgeworth Part 1, they felt like they went on for too long. Edgeworth Part 2, maybe there was a couple instances, like a couple cases that felt like it went on too long. Pretty much every case in the first Edgeworth game, aside from the first case, which is just a tutorial. So the second case is the one on the airplane. The whole game the overall plot is about Interpol, and Interpol was referenced or first brought up in Apollo Justice, which canonically Apollo Justice takes place way later than Edgeworth 1, because Edgeworth 1 and 2 take place before Phoenix Wright 3, I believe. Or it might be immediately after. I don't know. That's not super important. But that one was fun. It felt like it did go on a little too long, but there's some good moments in that. Also, Francisco von Karma is on it as well. In it. Yeah, just every case in the first game felt like it dragged on just a little too long. The last case felt like it dragged on way too long, but they all felt like they went on a little bit too long. So third case, Kidnap Turnabout. Oh yeah, Meekins makes a reappearance in that one. You know what? I'm almost tempted to put Turnabout Airlines ahead of Turnabout Kidnap. We met Shilong Lang in this one. Shilong Lang is pretty great. He's a reoccurring character because he makes a reappearance in the second game. You know what? I think they're... Oh yeah, she likes to whip the hell out of Larry. You know what? I would say they're almost tied. Like, if I could put these as a tie, 2 and 3, I'll put them that way. Anyways, case 4, which is actually 2 cases. I don't know. It's the one where we're first introduced to Tyrell Bad. It's a flashback. We're introduced more to the Yatagarasu, which I think was already established, right? No, the Yatagarasu was established in Kidnap Turnabout. Which again, Kidnap Turnabout... Okay, this is why it's above case 2. We're not introduced to Kay yet. Kay doesn't make an appearance until case 3. No. I'm talking about the case... The KG-8 incident, where Callisto Yu's sister died. For some reason I'm getting this a little confused. Because this is the one that, it actually is kind of a court case, sort of. We see Kay's dad kind of as the defense attorney. I don't know, for some reason I'm getting this very confused. The whole case was a flashback, but wasn't there was like a flashback within the flashback. Because, okay, I remember what it is. Kay's dad started the case, but then he ends up dying in the case. And then you play as Edgeworth and you kind of take over. Okay, I remember it now. That's what happens. But yeah, I would put it right there. Tyrell Bad is introduced. Tyrell Bad's a great character. He's awesome. So, Edgeworth Investigations Part 2. Game that never got an official until like 2 months from now. Is never officially translated. It's kind of dumb. However, enough of the fan base was willing to work together and translate it, which is great. They did an amazing job with it. Yeah, it's translated now, but it's just crazy because it was like, it was just a game that I don't think anyone ever thought it was ever going to get an official translation. And the thing is that even though now it's officially translated, the fan translation was still amazing. So it's like, how much did they even, like, did they change it? They had to have changed it from what the fan translation was, but it's like, it was already more or less translated. It's just, it wasn't officially translated, you know? I'm curious. I'm very curious because in the fan translation, well, here's the thing. What was his name in... Well, here's the thing. So I'm looking at it right now. Eustace Winter. Apparently that's... So her original name in Japanese was Verity Gavel. I guess it's supposed to mean like a gavel. But they changed her name to Justine Courtney in the fan translation. And apparently they changed Eustace Winter to Sebastian the Best, which is interesting that they did that because, okay, so they changed the names back to the official Japanese names, I guess, in the soon to be released translation report. I'm interested as to why they're going with Eustace Winter when he's obviously the son of Blaise the Best. It was never like it was never a secret. It wasn't like a plot twist, right? I've watched several Let's Plays of this, and I do not remember it being like a plot twist or anything that Sebastian was the son of Blaise the Best. But even then, it's like, well, he's the son of Blaise the Best, so why is his name Eustace Winter? I'm looking at it, I looked it up real quick. His name in the Japanese version is Blaise the Best. They didn't change his name at all. That was his actual name. Apparently in the official translation, Sebastian's last name is not the Best, it's Eustace Winter, but his dad's name is still Blaise the Best in the Japanese version, which, I don't know. My head's gonna melt if I think about that too much longer. Again, first case is the weakest one, but it's not bad. I don't think any case in this game is bad. Every case in this game is integral to the story. It is the only game that every case is relevant to the story. The only game that comes close is Dual Destinies. There's one case that is not integral, but every other case is, aside from the DLC. But Edgeworth Investigations 2, though, every game in that investigation, because they're not cases in that one, is integral to the story, and they all build up, and it all climaxes at the end of the game, which is great. I put case 2 above 1. I think they're about tied. The only difference is 1 is way shorter. 2's fun. I do think 2 might be the one case in this game that is a little bit too long. It's all relevant. Everything that happens in this game, in this case, in all the cases, is important. And I'm going to go into more detail, I guess, about these games once I rate the actual games themselves, which will be after when we get to the end here. But as I already said right off, Edgeworth 2 is my favorite game in the series, even though it's not like this. It's not the same. Like, it's not the trial game. Next case is, again, great case. It's the one where Kate kind of loses her memory. A lot of fun. Just from beginning to end, it's great. I'll actually go into more detail about this and probably the rest of the cases for Edgeworth Investigations 2 when I get to ranking the individual games. But case 3, amazing case. Kind of 2 cases in one. We actually, for a short time, play as... That's weird. The thing I'm looking at is not showing Edward's dad on here, even though this is clearly a case that has Edward's dad in it. But yeah, this one takes place in the past, sorta, and in the future. I love this case. It's really good. We'll get more into detail about it later. And the best case of the game is the final, by far. This case is insane. There's just really nothing bad to say about this one. So, right here, I do not have this typed out. Dual, I can spell, Dual Destinies. Dual Destinies. The first of the 3DS games. This game, okay. I was gonna bring this up at some point during the stream. So, the Apollo Justice trilogy. It just came out, right? The remaster of the Apollo Justice games. Yeah, because, yeah. There is, in my opinion, it is not a trilogy, okay? Dual Destinies is not an Apollo Justice game. I think when it was first, I don't know, like, it was never even marketed as an Apollo Justice game, which it's so weird that it's kind of clumped in, and now we just got a new remaster of Apollo Justice, Dual Destinies, and Spirit of Justice, and it's labeled as the Apollo Justice trilogy. Dual Destinies is not an Apollo Justice game. There's no argument to be made about it. Apollo Justice, first of all, is barely in the game. Like, I'm not mad about, because this is a game where we meet Athena Sykes, and I really like Athena Sykes. I think she's a great character who sadly kind of got, like, this is kind of her only game. She gets kind of shafted in Spirit of Justice, but this game, and to me, should have been called, or not called, but it should have been nicknamed or something. Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney, Athena Sykes. Just like how it's Ace Attorney, Apollo Justice, this should have been called Ace Attorney, Athena Sykes. Because that's what it is. This is her game. This character who we meet, named Athena, this is her game. Apollo Justice is in it for one case, and he kind of disappears, and then returns at the end of the game. It's weird that this is being marked. Again, it's probably just Capcom trying to sell crap, but this is within the quote-unquote Apollo Justice trilogy, and is not in any way... It's not. Okay, this is not. The least best, again, none of these are terrible. First case, it's the case that is basically a tutorial to learn the new mechanic, Athena's new mechanic 5-2, which is a case that has pretty much no relevance to the entire story, aside from meeting Bobby Fulbright, which Bobby Fulbright's a character, which I'm not going to go too much into detail of. Again, this case was kind of meh. At least there's some substance to it. The first case, again, it's just kind of a tutorial case, but it does link back. As I said, it links back to the story. And apart from Investigations 2, this game is probably the most every case has importance to it, except for this case. This case doesn't really have any relevance to the main plot line of the game. This one actually shows the DLC. I'll put the DLC right here. It's fairly lighthearted. Pearl Fay makes a reappearance, but it's like not canonical, kind of. It's odd, because this was obviously released after the game came out. Oh yeah, Blackwell. Blackwell's great. Blackwell's a character that it took me more than one. My initial playthrough, I was kind of about him. Then after like a few watching people let's play it, I really kind of grew to like the character. In retrospect, knowing kind of Simon's MO, I guess, his motivation, it makes me like him even more. I think he has probably the best. Well, none of the prosecutors really have like a overarching motivation. They're just doing their job. Simon's reason for his character, I think, is the best in the series, but the thing is, it only applies to this game. It's just within a box of where this character is introduced, and his entire kind of arc comes and then ends at the end of the game. He makes a reappearance in the next game, but the overall him being a character ends in the game. So it's all self-contained, which just for that I think is great. Because another example is like Nayuta and Godot. They're both self-contained. They're not in any other games. So their character kind of has to start and end in that game, and I don't think either of them were even remotely as impactful, even just within the game they are. Blackwell is just way better. And Edgeworth is a character that is just throughout the whole series great. There's not a whole lot more to say about Edgeworth just in that regards, but and Von Karma, while I really like Von Karma, her MO was never really there. She just wanted to make her dad proud, but she also didn't want to be compared to her dad. I don't know. It's not bad. It's not bad, but it's not like Blackwell. Blackwell's great, especially because of his connection to Athena, which again, Athena and Blackwell are the main characters of this game. As I said, for whatever reason, Capcom is labeling this game, Dual Destinies, as part of the Apollo Justice trilogy. Apollo Justice is barely even in this game. This is Athena Sykes' game. This is Ace Attorney, Phoenix Wright, or how should I phrase it? Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney, Athena Sykes. That's what this game is. And again, her character kind of gets summed up and ends in this game. While she is in the next game for a good amount, she is kind of put on the back burner because Spirit of Justice is an Apollo Justice game. I would say that's Apollo Justice Part 2, even though this is apparently Spirit of Justice, according to Capcom, is the third Apollo Justice game, which I don't know. I don't think so. I would say Spirit of Justice is Apollo Justice Part 2. I don't know. It's never really stuck. Also, the issue with Francisca Von Karma is the cases involved with her. She's first introduced, the same case that we're first introduced to Pearl and Crane Village, and yeah, we kind of introduce her character there. Just like how in case 1-2, we're first introduced to Edgeworth. We don't really know anything about Edgeworth at this point, just that he's this prosecutor. Case 2-3 is Big Top Turnabout, which is kind of the case that has no importance in the game. It's there to be a case, which I also don't think helps. And then case 2-4 happens, and in case 2-4, she is only in a case for she's only there for half the trial. So I do feel like she kind of got, I don't know, if the second game had one extra case, it had one more case, I think it would have done a lot more for her character just in that regard. But here's the thing, she makes a reappearance in Investigations 1 and 2, so at least she still has presence in the series after the second game. And I mean, she makes an appearance in the third game as well. Yeah, Dual Destinies DLC, it's really good, a lot of fun. Again, it was a case added after the game had already came out, so canonically it's because canonically Pearl doesn't make a return until the last case in Dual Destinies, but they wrote it for the DLC because the DLC, I think it takes place between case 2 and case 3, and that's when Pearl kind of canonically shows up. If you need any case to tell you that this game should have just been called Ace Attorney Athena Sykes, it's this case right here. Well, that and 4 and 5, which are again cases to do almost strictly with Athena. Very little relation to Apollo Justice aside from the guy dying being Apollo's retcon friend or whatever. Case 5-3 is, I'll get to it when my review of each game, of the pros and cons of each. This case, the whole kind of premise for the reasoning and all that, or I guess, is probably the worst part of the game. However, again, I'll get to it when I talk about the individual games. Power of friendship, and boy oh boy, that is some powerful friendship. This one's a lot of fun. Integral to the story because it builds upon Athena's character. There's one thing that I kind of wish. I'm not trying to stir up any, I just, for the sake of storytelling, I feel like they missed a good opportunity. I fought the entire case, well, at least to reveal that, what's her name? Robin. I feel like they should have just had Robin identify as being trans. I feel like that would have been kind of a better plot point, but no, Robin was just a straight up girl. But that felt like that's what they were doing. And I know several people that played it, and they kind of were like thinking that that was what it was going to be, was that Robin was just trans, but no, Robin's just a girl. This is also a Japanese game. Even in 2024, is still a fairly not accepted thing in Japan. 5-4 is Turnabout for Tomorrow. This is interesting because 5-4 and 5-5 are basically the same case to an extent, but they are different. They are like, you do Turnabout for Tomorrow, the case ends on the cliffhanger. That's weird. I'm looking at my list, and for some reason I have 5-4 above 5-5, but I definitely don't think that's right. That is 5-5, 5-4. And again, they're pretty much the same case. Spirit of Justice. Probably the most, for the cases that are actually relevant to the story. There's 2 of them that are not. There's quite a bit actually, in comparison to most of the other games. There are 2 cases that are not relevant at all, and the DLC is not relevant. The DLC in a second. The reason why it's there, the sole reason why it exists for the most part, is probably the most serious game of the series. Dual Destinies was pretty serious. The Investigations game as well, but Spirit of Justice just, I don't know, it felt like it missed some of charm of Phoenix Wright. Yeah, that's what I'm gonna get to when I get to this DLC case, and the reason why it exists. Where's the 6-1? I think 6-1, it's a tutorial again. We are introduced to Rafa. Rafa's great. Very unfortunate. One of the more tragic characters in the series, aside from, like, Edgeworth. But, so 6-1 is basically... Oh yeah, I forgot about Metal Monk. Oh god. Maybe I'm looking at my list. This actually might be one of my lowest rated first cases of a game, of one of the games. Okay, here's my issue with it. It felt like it went on for too long. For a first case, it felt like it dragged a bit too long. It is integral though. That is one thing it does. Even though it's very, like, is only very slightly integral, there is, like, the baddie's motivation or his reasoning for what he does come back later on, so it is important. Yeah, the Metal Monk, Jesus. 6-4 is the one with the whole Raguko thing. It's a case just to have Athena and Blackwell together again, which, again, that's the only good part of the case. There's Clown Girl, which we're gonna keep this stream family friendly. Yeah, in my opinion, the only good part of this case is Athena and Blackwell working together. They might be like my favorite kind of duo in the series, even more than Phoenix and Edgeworth, I think, because Edgeworth is strong on his own, Phoenix is strong on his own. Their dynamic is good, but I think Athena and Blackwell's dynamic together is the best in the series, as being like a attorney and prosecutor thing. Nayuta as well. We'll get to that. I'll explain my issues with the pros and cons of these games, and Nayuta is going to be on here as well. And it's missed opportunity for Nayuta, just to say that. Yeah, they have a great relationship, Blackwell and Athena. And great, like, history for the characters. Like, the reason why they know each other is great. Because Phoenix and Edgeworth, well, again, it's the first game, so you have to give the first game a pass on some things. The only reason why Phoenix Wright became a defense attorney was because Edgeworth stuck up for him in a class. That is tame compared to the reasoning why Athena Sykes became an attorney, as well as Blackwell's MO. Athena Sykes' reasoning for becoming an attorney is probably the best story-wise and actual motivation out of any character in the game. But again, Athena gets pretty much shafted in this game. The Spirit of Justice is the sequel to Apollo Justice. Even though Dual Destinies is apparently considered an Apollo Justice game, I do not consider it an Apollo Justice game. This game, though, is a 100% an Apollo Justice game. But yeah, there's not a whole lot more to say about 6.4. The DLC. The DLC is solely there to have one last case with Maya, Phoenix, and Edgeworth. That's all it is. One big issue I have with this case, and it's from a writing point of view. They basically shit on Athena the entire time. Athena keeps making these appearances, saying she wants to help and all that, and Phoenix basically tells her to screw off. It's like, it doesn't feel natural. It feels like whoever wrote this case was like not involved in the writing of any of the other cases. It feels weird how they kind of treat Athena in this case. They just constantly just push her out of the way. Because it's like, because here's the thing, the reason why they're doing this is because, oh, Athena's not an original from the beginning character, so she can't be in this case. So I feel like they're trying to make a joke of it, and it comes off as kind of mean. Like, this, I don't know. I'm 100%. I think they even like the series is done, at least with Phoenix Wright, Edgeworth, and all them, because the Great Ace Attorney has no relation to the Phoenix Wright cast for the most part. They're in their own kind of connected, but still a different universe type of thing. Yeah. So all the DLC is just one last case with Maya, Phoenix, and Edgeworth in court together before the series with them ends. 6.2 turnabout, magical turnabout, right? Yeah, magical turnabout. It's the first case with Nayuta. I'll get into the issue with Nayuta, and again, it's writing plus just missed opportunity. It's a case. There's some retcon as well, because whatever his name is, Johnny Depp looking guy, like, he kind of, that was like solely retconned in. I mean, the whole Apollo Justice being and living Kurain, or Kurain, that's obviously just came about in Spirit Justice. It's like a, hey, by the way, I grew up in Kurain. But that's fine. I mean, when every new game, and a game can add retcon stuff, and it works. But the extra member of True Grammary, even though they've already been kind of established in Apollo Justice, that felt a little weird, but I don't know. It is what it is. But here's the thing. I'm saying I don't think it's great, but I have it ranked higher than DLC 6.4 and 6.1. So, if that tells you anything about where I'm about to have Spirit of Justice ranked, yeah. So next case. Pretty good, I guess. It took me maybe my first playthrough, or I honestly had no idea who the hell did the first killing. Even though it clearly tells you what happened, I still didn't understand what happened. I watched someone else do a Let's Play of it. I still don't understand what happened. It took me probably till my third watch through of going like, oh, this is what happened, and that's what... I don't know, this case, it's fairly integral to the story, I guess. It felt clunky. Every case in Spirit of Justice feels clunky. None of the other games felt like that. They all felt like it didn't... like, everything made sense the first time, or the first way through, sorta. It took a never watch through of someone else playing it to actually knowing what happens in the case and then watching it again to find the small details. This game, though, it took me probably a good 3 or 4 watches of other people playing it before some of the stuff clicked. It just, I don't know, it felt very clustered, if that makes sense. Best case of the last case, it's, yeah. Even then it has problems. Wait a minute. Something's not right here. Am I losing my mind? Where is... I think this list is wrong. Because where is the case with the archaeologist guy? This list is wrong. That's the issue. Whoever did this tier list, for some reason, does not have... Because there's 6 cases. There's 6 cases and then the DLC. So 7 total. For some reason, they have 6-5. The picture for 6-5, that's the final case, and it's not. Okay, it's still the same case. For some reason, that's so weird, because on the wiki, and I guess this is right, Turnabout Revolution is still the same case. The one where Apollo goes against Phoenix in a civil trial. Apparently that's still the same case as the one back in Kurain. That is very weird. I don't understand why it's separate. Especially because in Dual Destinies, 4 and 5 is separate, even though they're connected. Like, I don't know. Okay. Say for just the sake of the list, if I were to be... If there was an option here to split for 6-5 in the second half, I would put the first part with the archaeologists and all that at in between 6-2 and the DLC. The actual part when they go back to Kurain, that's the best case of the game. And that's still not saying too much because there is quite a bit of problems with that case, which I'm about to get to. Because this is the end for the cases. Okay. Quick glance, it seems like every single final case is, in my opinion, the best case of the game. There's not a single game on here where it's not. Actually, except Edgeworth 1. The first Edgeworth Investigations game, the final case is actually towards the bottom. And pretty much every first case of a game is at the bottom. None of them are bad. I need to reiterate that none of these cases are like really bad, in my opinion. My favorite first case is probably the first case of Trials and Tribulations. Yeah, that's definitely by far my favorite first case. The first case in Apollo Justice is pretty good as well. But yeah, this is what it looks like. Yeah, like I said, Apollo Justice has a very good first case. Very interesting, because you have no idea what the hell's going on. This Phoenix Wright is a bum for some reason. And I'm only going to count 6-5 as being the part that's actually in Kurain. I'm not going to consider the archaeology part, because I consider that a completely different case. Yeah, Case 3 and Edgeworth Investigations 2 is real good, but it's not top 10. Okay, this is going to be kind of interesting, or odd. Is the final case, is that my favorite case in the series? For some reason that doesn't feel right. Here's the thing, even though this is like a top 5, I would say they're all kind of equal. Feels a little off for some reason. Final case is real good. Investigations too. Ooh. This is hard to do. I don't think I can even do a top 5. I think these are all just tied. Like, it's a 5-way tie for a top 5. So, they're all final cases. Yeah. I guess I should I think the easier thing to say would be the weakest final case for one of these games. The weakest final case would be Investigations 1. But for like a core Phoenix Wright game, the weakest final case, in my opinion, is Apollo Justice final case. I have this here. A lot of good entertainment value for the final case of, well, prior to the DLC. The final case of Spirit of Justice, it has a ton of problems. Like a lot of problems. More problems than any of the other final cases. But the final case for Edgeworth Investigation 1 is just really long. That's the only issue with it.